Welcome back to the Road to City Hall. My next guest wants to make New York the first major city to allow non-citizens the right to vote. The city council legislation would let immigrants who have lived here legally for at least 6 months vote for mayor and other city offices, city council, controller, and so forth. Joining us to talk about the proposed legislation is one of the bill's co-sponsors, Queens Councilman Daniel Dromm. He's joined by Queens Professor of Sociology, Sujatha Fernandes. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in to explain this. This comes up every so often, and you've been talking about this for years. Why do you want this bill to pass?
Well, this is about the third time that it's come up. And to be honest with you, about 1 in 5 New Yorkers cannot vote in municipal elections. And I feel that's a very important constituency. You're talking about 20% of the vote. In a community like the community that I represent, which is 68% immigrant, I'm sure many of them would be affected by this legislation. I believe in democracy, and I believe that people should participate in local elections. People who are legally here in the United States should have that opportunity to participate. And I actually believe that it will help to get them more involved and more civically engaged. And that's why I move forward with this.
And roughly how many people would this add potentially to the
We estimate about 800,000 or so
Wow.
people.
Okay.
So it would be dramatic. The change in New York City politics would really feel the effect
Okay,
of this.
well, we'll get into the legalities in just a moment, but Professor, tell us, you have a global perspective. You're from Australia, and you've done stuff all over the world. Is this the norm in other countries to let non-citizens vote?
There are some countries, or many countries like, say, with New York City, that are putting it on the table. There are some countries like Korea where they do allow their citizens to vote. So they do allow non-citizens to vote. So it varies. There is. But I am myself a permanent resident of the United States. I've lived in this country for 15 years, and I don't have the right to vote. My children are about to enter public school. I'm a professor at Queens College, and I'm not a citizen, so I'm not able
we
to
let you
vote.
teach our children, but we don't
Right.
let you cast a vote.
Yeah.
Does that feel unfair? Do you feel slighted? Do you feel like you're paying taxes and not able to sort of steer the direction of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, I'm part of this country, I'm participating, I'm involved in all kinds of different civic participation activities, and yet I don't have the ability to vote. So I do feel that I really would like to have a voice, and I feel that voting would be one important way to have that.
And Councilman, this conversation has been evolving. You introduced this with 8 co-sponsors back in 2010. Now you're up to, what, 34 now?
34, which is a veto-proof
How did
majority.
you do that?
Well, I think the issue of comprehensive immigration reform has affected a lot of people in the council, my colleagues as well, and they recognize that this is important to the immigrant community. So little by little, working with the advocates, we were able to get these additional sponsors.
And of course, there are those who don't like the idea. The Daily News editorial board had this to say. I'll get your reaction after I read it. This is part of it. The measure, this is an editorial, the measure as drafted would give the franchise to virtually any foreigner visiting the city for 6 months. Citizenship is a rite of passage for a reason. You take a test, you swear an oath, you acknowledge your lasting dedication to the United States. It is the final meaningful distinction between Americans and others. It means a great deal, and its privileges are not to be altered by an unworkable law. They said that earlier this month. Is the amount of time important as far as you're concerned? Do you feel different having been here for 15 years than you did, say, after the first 6 months?
I do, definitely, because over 15 years you build a community, you build a life in this country. People, and not just myself, but I'm thinking about the people in West Harlem where I live, the beauty shop owner, the guy selling vegetables on the street. I mean, these people have lived here for many years. They've invested money in businesses, in small businesses, and they get to the point where they feel like there's a block. They feel isolated. They feel like they should be able to have some input into the policies that control their lives, their businesses, their work, as do I. And yet, many of us from several different walks of life are prevented from moving ahead.
Is 6 months something negotiable, or is it important? Is it crucial?
Look,
is it something you can
citizens
bend on?
can move from one city to another and then 25 days later register to vote. There's no guarantee that anyone is going to live in any certain city for any length of period of time. I don't see why we want to apply different set of rules really to immigrants, except that this 60-day period, 6-month period, would guarantee that they've been here for a while to understand the system somewhat. So I'm fine with that.
One of the legal objections that the mayor, in fact, has cited, although he thinks it's substantively a bad idea, he also says that there's a legal problem that the state constitution basically prohibits non-citizen
I disagree
voting.
with him on that, and we have precedent. There were school board elections from 1968 to 2001 in which parents who were here legally and those who were undocumented were allowed to vote in school board elections. So there's already been precedent set. That legislation was approved by the state legislature in 1968. So I don't know why the mayor is insisting on that. We had attorneys at the hearing who actually said the exact opposite, that there is no bar, a constitutional bar to this happening.
Do you at least need home rule? Do you need permission from Albany to enact this?
No, we don't need that.
New York can just do it on its own as far as you're
concerned.
concerned.
What we believe.
You have enough votes for a mayoral override, so even if the mayor doesn't like it, you could get it passed. I guess the question then becomes, will Speaker Christine Quinn allow this to come up for a vote?
Well, she said that she's interested in legislation. She wanted to see what went on in the hearing. We just had the hearing last week. And I'm optimistic that we can get it out of committee and that we can bring it to the floor, I hope, by the end of the year.
As an elected official, do you have any concerns that in a district that's 68% immigrant, that you give them the vote and they might decide to vote for somebody from their community and not you?
Well, I hope not. I've been a very good advocate for immigrants. I'm the chair of the Immigration Committee in the City Council. But there are, identity politics that go on as well. And I do believe that the legislature and legislative bodies should reflect the population. I'm also a member of the LGBT community. There's a large LGBT community in Jackson Heights, and that's what makes Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, the areas that I represent, so wonderful, because of the diversity of those communities.
Well, Professor, will you feel less fulfilled if the law doesn't change, if you continue to work for the city of New York, essentially as a professor, and yet can't vote for the leadership of that city?
Yes, I will feel less fulfilled, because I would feel that I was losing an opportunity to further my own civic participation. And I come from a country, Australia, where voting is compulsory. And so from very young, you grow up with this idea that voting is important. It's an important part of exercising your right as a citizen and as a resident of a place where you live. So it is important to me.
Okay, very good. Well, we haven't heard the last of this issue. Thank you for introducing it to our viewers, and I'll look forward to speaking with you both again. We're going to take a short break now. Still to come, we'll take a look at a program that shows local students how to use the political process to tackle problems in their communities. Stay with us.